This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. It's Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. I'm Jeff McKay, in for John Trout, and coming up,
anticipating landfall of another major hurricane,
bringing widespread impacts from both wind and storm surge.
I'm Clayton Neville.
The U.S. Supreme Court hears its first major case of the new term, with a death sentence case and transgender rights on the docket as well. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
An ISIS-inspired Election Day terror plot thwarted by the FBI. Norman Hall will have the details.
More than a dozen states filed lawsuits against TikTok, alleging the app harms youth mental health. Julie Walker, New York.
Are consumers shunning sodas and snacks for smokes? That could be one of the reasons behind weaker sales for one of America's beverage and snack giants. I'm Peter Shackman.
The 1980 Miracle on Ice hockey team could be on its way to another gold medal. Sagar Magani, Washington.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Hurricane Milton tracking toward Florida's west coast after re-intensifying into a Category 5 storm. Correspondent Clayton Neville tells us final preparations are underway and authorities are warning of things like price gouging as coastal residents flock to hotels on higher ground.
President Biden with a message for Americans in Milton's path.
Listen to the local authorities.
FEMA, as it still grapples with impacts of recent catastrophic flooding brought by Hurricane Helene, is standing by.
I've directed my team to do everything they can to save lives and help communities before, during, and after this hurricane.
Milton expected to be a major hurricane when it makes landfall on Florida's west coast, likely late tonight or early tomorrow.
Bringing widespread impacts from both wind and storm surge, because the wind field of Milton, which you can see down here, the tropical storm force winds, the hurricane force winds, are going to about double in size by the time the storm reaches the west coast of Florida.
National Hurricane Center Director Michael Brennan says that storm surge as high as 5 feet is expected in some spots, in others even higher.
Basically from Pinellas County, Hillsborough County, Tampa Bay, Sarasota, Manatee County, somewhere in this region is going to experience 10 to 15 feet of inundation above ground level. This is destructive, life-threatening storm surge, not a safe environment to stay in.
Director Brennan with what exactly that could look like.
10 to 15 feet, so that's well above the height of any person, up to the above a one to even getting into the second story of a building. And it's not just the water, it's not going to be filling up like a bathtub. This is water that's going to violently be pushed onshore from the Gulf of Mexico with destructive wave action on top of it. And you're going to have structural damage to buildings. Some buildings will wash away. Evacuation routes will be quickly cut off. We've lost people to storm surge in previous hurricanes who are trying to get out at the last minute and they drown in their cars. So please do not stay in these environments.
Hurricane force winds and heavy rain also expected to impact parts of eastern Florida. The state's Governor Ron DeSantis.
This storm is going to go across the Florida Peninsula, and it's going to exit on the east coast of Florida into the Atlantic Ocean, likely still as a hurricane. So that is going to bring significant impacts all across the state.
Late yesterday, Milton was upgraded to a Category 5 storm when sustained winds again reached 165 miles per hour. Its strength at landfall still uncertain, but it is believed that Milton will be extremely powerful and will hit a region still reeling from deadly flooding and destruction by Helene. I'm Clayton Neville.
This week, the U.S. Supreme Court began their new session on oral arguments, hearing an important Second Amendment case regarding the regulation of so-called ghost guns. John Stolnis has more on that case and the High Court's upcoming term in Washington.
At issue, whether the Biden administration's Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms had the legal right to restrict the sale and purchase of gun kits that can be put together by a buyer that are virtually untraceable. U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelager says these so-called ghost guns pose a true danger to the American public.
And it makes perfect sense because the whole reason why you would want to get your hands on one of these unserialized, untraceable firearms is if you are a prohibited person or you want to use that gun in a crime.
Ghost guns have no serial numbers, and the ATF mandated makers of ghost guns must use the same identification protocols as they would in making regular guns. Their use in violent crimes has exploded. In 2018, less than 4,000 were recovered from crime scenes. That number jumped to 20,000 in 2021. Pete Patterson, attorney for Jennifer Vanderstock and gun rights groups, says the ATF is acting outside its authority.
In a departure from prior federal law, Congress decided to regulate only a single part of a firearm, the frame or receiver. and Congress did not alter the common understanding of a frame or receiver. ATF has now exceeded its authority by operating outside of the bounds set by Congress.
Conservative Justices Chief John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett joined with the three liberals to allow the rule to go into effect and seemed likely to uphold the current rule. Conservative Justice Samuel Alito asked Prelogar if simply having the components of making a gun makes it a gun, such as having the ingredients of making an omelet. Prelogar said the comparison isn't apt because ingredients to make an omelet can be used to make other things. Gun kits can only be turned into guns.
I think that you can recognize that something is a weapon even if it's non-functional, if it is clear from objective evidence.
No, I think that certainly is true from the face of the statute.
Other cases of note this term, a controversial death penalty case in which an Oklahoma parole board is deadlocked on whether to grant clemency to a man potentially wrongly convicted in a murder-for-hire scheme. Another involves a Tennessee law that restricts puberty blockers and hormone therapy for transgender minors. John Stolnis, Washington.
Coming up next, a potential Election Day terror plot thwarted when America in the Morning returns after these messages. Welcome back to America in the Morning. Hurricane Milton remains on a direct path to Central Florida as one of the most powerful storms in recorded history. With the forecast, here's AccuWeather meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Hurricane Milton regained Category 5 status yesterday afternoon, but fortunately it will be encountering slightly less favorable conditions as it starts to move to the northeast toward the western coast of Florida today. Despite that, AccuWeather hurricane experts are still expecting Milton to be a major hurricane, which is Category 3 or higher, at the point of landfall, which still remains around the Tampa Bay area, with the center reaching the coast just after midnight tonight. Milton is going to produce a storm surge up to 20 feet with widespread areas of rain of 8 to 16 inches. Winds at the point of landfall could gust as high as 165 miles per hour, which will cause widespread power outages that could last for weeks. Outside of Milton, the nation is rather quiet with just a few showers across the northeast from a system centered in Canada. There will also be a few scattered showers across the northern Cascades from a weak frontal system moving through that area, and a shower or two over the Colorado Rockies. A good portion of the nation remains dry with abundant sunshine. The Southwest will once again have hot weather where records are once again going to be broken through Arizona into Nevada and Southern California. The Northwest will be more comfortable with highs in the 60s and 70s. And the Plain States are also going to be quite warm today from eastern Montana into the Dakotas, southward through Texas. Highs will be in the 80s and 90s, and some places will be just a few degrees shy of reaching record levels. That's the weather across America. Little Rock, Arkansas will be warm again today with sunshine and a high of 83. Detroit, Michigan will be cooler with sunshine and a few afternoon clouds and a high of 65. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember to follow us everywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm Jeff McKay. The FBI is releasing details of the arrest of an Afghan national in Oklahoma City. Correspondent Norman Hall reports the man influenced by ISIS is being charged with attempting to carry out a terror attack here in the U.S. on Election Day.
The Justice Department says federal agents arrested an Afghan man who officials say was inspired by the Islamic State militant organization and was plotting an Election Day attack targeting large crowds in the U.S. According to charging documents, Nasir Ahmad Tawhidi of Oklahoma City told FBI investigators after his arrest Monday that he had planned his attack to coincide with Election Day next month and that he and a co-conspirator expected to die as martyrs. He allegedly had taken steps to advance his attack plans, including ordering firearms and buying one-way tickets for his wife and child to travel home to Afghanistan. I'm Norman Hall.
There's new trouble for TikTok. Correspondent Julie Walker reports some states are suing the Chinese-made social media app, alleging its platform has detrimental effects on the mental health of children.
More than a dozen states and the District of Columbia filed lawsuits against TikTok Tuesday, alleging the app harms youth mental health by designing its platform to be addictive to kids. The lawsuits stem from a national investigation into TikTok by a bipartisan coalition of attorneys general from many states, including New York. Meanwhile, a federal law based on security concerns is still hanging over TikTok, which could ban it in the U.S. if its China-based parent company ByteDance doesn't sell the platform by mid-January. The company is appealing. Julie Walker, New York.
Coming up next, a look at business and why the interest rates are going down, but mortgage rates are rising. America in the Morning, back after these messages. You're listening to America in the Morning. I'm Jeff McKay. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. After the closing bell yesterday, the Department of Justice made recommendations for Google search engine's business practices, indicating it was considering a possible breakup of the tech giant as an antitrust remedy. With more business news, here's CNBC's Peter Schack with Wednesday Business.
American consumers do love their soft drinks and snacks, but they're apparently dealing with higher prices by cutting back. That's been cited by analysts as a key reason why PepsiCo, the company behind a large number of popular soda brands, as well as snacks like Doritos and Lay's potato chips, has cut its annual sales forecast. Brian Spillane follows the fortunes of PepsiCo as senior food and beverage analyst at BofA Securities.
The real weakness is isolated in the convenience store channel. The price points are definitely very high. Consumers are also prioritizing other things. If they've got a limited wallet as they walk into the C-store, they're prioritizing nicotine first, and then, the other attachments are actually falling off. And that's really where the serious weakness is right now.
Those convenience store sales typically account for a significant portion of PepsiCo's beverage sales. Investors apparently believe the situation is only temporary, though, with the stock rising 2% yesterday after initially falling. As for the stock market as a whole, Tuesday's gains wiped out virtually all of Monday's losses, but a number of market watchers are expressing caution. Drew Mattis, chief market strategist at MetLife Investment Management, says one danger point for investors is thinking the Fed will cut interest rates sooner and faster than the central bank actually will.
We know the labor market's slowing. If unemployment moves higher, inflation will probably come lower. And so that's the mechanism. And then the question is, how much does the Fed have to cut in order to make sure that they can pretty well predict where the peak in unemployment is? And I think that's where markets have it wrong. Markets have priced in just a significant amount of easing from the Federal Reserve, even though there's very little evidence to suggest there's any sort of weakness in the economy that would warrant that kind of reaction.
Wall Street will have a number of chances to maintain or change its collective thinking about the Fed and interest rates today. No less than 6 Fed officials are scheduled to make separate public appearances. And the central bank will release the minutes of its most recent policy meeting at which it cut benchmark interest rates by 0.5 point.
Peter, if the Fed is cutting interest rates and there may be another cut coming, then explain why are mortgage rates going higher?
Well, it's somewhat like driving a car at a predetermined speed, but then suddenly slamming on the brakes. As noted, the Fed cut benchmark rates by 0.5 point, signaling more cuts to come, presumably to boost the economy and more specifically to keep the labor market from weakening too much. But then came the stronger than expected jobs report, which had investors speculating that maybe those rate cuts wouldn't be as soon or as much as had been thought. That speculation in the market drove Treasury yields higher, which in turn drove other rates like mortgage rates higher. This effect could be temporary, and we could get more of a sense of that later this morning when the Mortgage Bankers Association releases its weekly report on mortgage applications and rates.
Thank you, Peter. Coming up next, X clears a Brazilian hurdle and another gold medal in the works for the Miracle on Ice hockey team when America in the Morning returns after these messages. You're listening to America in the Morning. I'm Jeff McKay. Thanks to an apology and Elon Musk forking over a $5 million fine, the social media platform X, formerly Twitter, is now back up and running in Brazil. Correspondent Haya Penjwani reports.
Elon Musk's X was blocked in August in the highly online country of 213 million people in one of X's biggest markets. Its user base in Brazil ranges from 20 to 40 million. The Supreme Court justice ordered the shutdown after a months-long dispute with Musk over free speech far-right accounts and misinformation. Despite Musk being hesitant, X ultimately complied with all of the Brazilian government's demands. They included blocking certain accounts from the platform, paying outstanding fines, and naming a legal representative in the country. I'm Haya Panjwani.
At a time when America needed a lift, the United States men's hockey team shocked the world by beating the heralded Soviet Union and win gold in the 1980 Winter Olympic Games. Washington correspondent Sagar Magani reports on a bill to honor the Miracle on Ice Olympic hockey team.
The team that shocked the Soviet squad in Lake Placid nearly 45 years ago took home Olympic gold. Now a bill's been introduced in the House to award it congressional gold medals. Minnesota Republican Pete Stauber, a former minor league hockey player, is one of the sponsors, saying it's a way to thank the team for memories the nation will never forget. The deaths of two players and coach Herb Brooks in past decades have added urgency to the process. The measure is expected to be debated after the election. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Thanks for listening to America in the Morning. Our senior producer is Kevin Delaney. I'm Jeff McKay, in for John Trout on the Westwood One Radio Network. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm Jeff McKay, in for John Trout, and coming up this half hour.
Residents in one western Florida beach town are getting ready for Milton. Sagar Magani, Washington.
A media blitz for the vice president. I'm Clayton Neville.
He's a journalist, and he asked some harsh questions. But did CBS Morning Show anchor Tony Jacopo go too far? I'm Sue Aller.
A former New York City official has been charged with destroying evidence that led to Mayor Eric Adams' indictment. I'm Norman Hall.
Hurricane Milton forcing the closure of Central Florida's theme parks.
The Israeli military says it has killed a senior Hezbollah commander in a strike on Beirut. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
What went wrong with the expensive bust that was the sequel to Joker? I'm Kevin Carr.
We're back after these messages. Welcome back to America in the Morning with the latest on Hurricane Milton and a southwest scorcher. Here's AccuWeather meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Hurricane Milton returned to Category 5 status yesterday afternoon, but fortunately it will be encountering slightly less favorable conditions as it starts to move to the northeast toward the western coast of Florida today. Despite that, AccuWeather hurricane experts are still expecting Milton to be a major hurricane, which is Category 3 or higher, at the point of landfall, which still remains around the Tampa Bay area, with the center reaching the coast just after midnight tonight. Milton is going to produce a storm surge of up to 20 feet with a widespread area of 8 to 16 inches of rain. Winds at the point of landfall could gust as high as 65 miles per hour, and this is going to lead to widespread power outages that could last for weeks. Outside of Milton, the nation is going to be rather quiet. There'll be just a few showers in the northeast from a system centered in eastern Canada. And that will also provide some cool weather through the Great Lakes into the northeast, maybe a little more temperate through the Ohio Valley into the middle Atlantic. Highs will largely be in the 50s and 60s in northern areas, with 70s in the southern Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and middle Atlantic. Some New England mountains will remain in the low 40s. There will also be a few scattered showers in the northern Rockies from a weak frontal system moving through that area, and a shower or two over the Colorado Rockies. A good portion of the nation remains dry with abundant sunshine. The Southwest is once again going to have hot weather, where records are once again going to be broken in parts of Arizona into Nevada and Southern California. The Northwest will be more comfortable with highs in the 60s and 70s, and the Plain States are going to be quite warm today from eastern Montana into the Dakotas, southward through Texas. Highs will be in the 80s and 90s. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm Jeff McKay, in for John Trout. One of the strongest hurricanes ever recorded is continuing on a path toward Tampa, Florida. Milton remains a powerful Category 5 storm as it moves across the very warm Gulf of Mexico, expected to make landfall later today just south of Tampa Bay, and will cut a path of destruction right through the heart of Central Florida. As Washington correspondent Sagar Magani reports, area residents on Florida's west coast are getting ready for Milton with a mix of resignation and fear.
So we try to prepare the best we can, go our our supplies, our medical stuff. We got everything wrapped in plastic bags in the house, just in case the house flood. We zip tie the plastic bags.
We're sandbagging all of the doors, all the doorways, and basically that's it. We just want to try to make sure nothing does get into the house.
How many people have said to me, well, you just went through a big storm. What are the chances that it's going to happen again anytime soon?
Residents in one western Florida beach town are getting ready for Milton as workers drilled plywood and piled sandbags.
Preparing for round two, trying to salvage whatever very little is left.
Helene ripped up Dimitri Kasathanis' house, and now Milton.
Just too much going on to even think of it. It's all surreal.
Helene spared Yara Lapathakis' house.
I don't know how, by God, but this time I don't think it's going to be saved.
She's scared and doesn't know what'll happen next, but she knows what that's like. Lapathakis is from Lebanon.
Now Lebanon is under fire, and then here, this is the hurricane. My family is there, and I'm here. They are worried about me more than I'm worried about them. I don't know. It's just crazy.
No matter what property damage is done, we can rebuild homes, we can rebuild businesses, we can get people back on their feet, but only if they're safe and they survive the storm. We're not going to be able to bring people back who stay behind in 10 or 15 feet of storm surge. So you have time today. Time is running out.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Vice President and Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris is making the rounds on television and radio as her campaign faces criticism for not doing enough interviews ahead of the November election. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Vice President Harris went after her opponent, former President Donald Trump, while speaking on Howard Stern's show. She referenced Trump backing out of a 60-minute interview and said that he wouldn't be able to sustain the fact-checking that goes into an interview like that.
This is an election that is about strength versus weakness.
Yeah.
And weakness as projected by someone who puts himself in front of the American people and does not have the strength to stand in defense of their needs, their dreams, their desires.
Trump hasn't been shy from interviews this election season, and Harris ramping up her TV appearances now. She appeared on ABC's The View, and Trump jumped all over this moment. He posted a clip to social media.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
He posted, quote, Lion Kamala, who's being exposed as a dummy every time she does a show, just stated to the degenerates on The View that she would have done nothing different than crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States, end quote. And she did later come back to that question.
Listen, I plan on having a Republican in my cabinet.
I got a list.
Yes, right. You asked me what's the difference between Joe Biden and me. Well, that will be one of the differences. I'm going to have a Republican in my cabinet.
Harris was on CBS's 60 Minutes this week and was grilled about the border. Some critics say she appeared to struggle with a straight answer.
The policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem. Okay.
But the numbers did quadruple.
And the numbers today, because of what we have done, we have cut the flow of illegal immigration by half. We have cut the flow of fentanyl by half, but we need Congress to be able to act to actually fix the problem.
It's a media blitz some say is long overdue for Harris, while others believe it comes at the right time as early voting and mail-in voting is approaching across the country. I'm Clayton Neville.
There's trouble at the Tiffany Network following an interview on the CBS morning show between the show's Jewish co-anchor and an author known for his pro-Palestinian views. Sue Aller has the details from New York.
CBS News is facing internal turmoil following an interview conducted by morning anchor Tony Dokoupil with author Ta-Nehisi Coates. During the interview, Dokoupil questioned Coates about his anti-Israel views in his new book, The Message. Here's part of that CBS morning show interview.
Why leave out that Israel is surrounded by countries that want to eliminate it? Why leave out that Israel deals with terror groups that want to eliminate it? And is it because you just don't believe that Israel in any condition has a right to exist?
I am most concerned always with those who don't have a voice.
with those who don't have the ability to talk. I wrote a 260-page book. It is not a treatise on the entirety of the conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
But if you were to read this book, you would be left wondering, why does any of Israel exist?
This led to backlash from the staff who felt the interview did not meet the network's editorial standards. According to the New York Post, management came down on DeKoppel this past Monday, October 7th, the one-year anniversary of the Hamas attack on Israel. The Post also said that CBS News forced DeKoppel, who is Jewish, to meet with the network's in-house race and cultural unit following the complaints. I'm Sue Aller.
Coming up next, more legal trouble for the New York City mayor's inner circle, good news on doing your taxes, and the baseball playoffs with Robert Workman when America in the Morning returns after these messages. Welcome back to America in the Morning. Troubles are growing by the day for New York City Mayor Eric Adams, as a former aide is the latest to face charges in connection with a federal investigation. Correspondent Norman Hall reports.
A former New York City official has been charged with witness tampering and destroying evidence in a sweeping federal investigation that led to Mayor Eric Adams' indictment.
The courtroom will deal with the cases. I must deal with the case of affordable housing, educating our children, keeping our city safe, all of those cases that I must deal with, and that's what I'm going to do.
Adams is accused of taking bribes and illegal campaign cash from foreign interest. Mohammed Bahi, who resigned Monday as the mayor's liaison to the Muslim community, faces accusations including deleting phone app communications with Adams. The mayor praised Bahi for his community work, but steered clear of the latest allegations.
He has attorneys. Let his attorneys handle his case. And just as, attorneys should do that for any individual that's in contact with law enforcement.
Adams, who has pleaded not guilty, has vowed to stay in office and seek re-election next year. I'm Norman Hall.
With Hurricane Milton heading straight towards Central Florida, Orlando's theme parks, including all of Disney World, Universal Studios, and Busch Gardens, will be closed today and tomorrow. The closures of the theme parks also comes at a tremendous cost for the park's owners and the state of Florida. Goldman Sachs is estimating a 2-day closure and other disruptions from Milton will cost Disney between $150 and $200 million. It's also expected to cost both the state of Florida and Orange County, the home to Disney, a combined millions of dollars in lost tax revenue. October is one of the busiest times for the Orlando theme parks because of Halloween-related celebrations. Certainly nobody enjoys paying their taxes, but as correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports, the IRS is announcing plans to expand a popular free-to-use program next year.
The IRS is expanding its program that allows people to file their taxes directly with the IRS for free. The Direct File program allows taxpayers to calculate and submit their returns to the IRS directly without using commercial tax preparation software. In the 2025 tax season, more than 30 million people in 24 states will be eligible to participate. The program was rolled out as a pilot program for the 2024 tax season in 12 states. The IRS says the program will be permanent and that they are working to expand taxpayer eligibility. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
In the Middle East, Israel confirms an airstrike in the Beirut suburbs killed the successor to the late head of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, and more Israeli troops have rolled into southern Lebanon. Correspondent Charles De Ledesma reports Israel announced another leading Hezbollah commander has been killed in an airstrike.
We took out thousands of terrorists, including Nasrallah himself, and Nasrallah's replacement, and the replacement of his replacement. Today, Hezbollah is weaker than it's been for many, many years.
The Israeli military says it has killed a senior Hezbollah commander in a strike on Beirut, a day after the one-year anniversary of the October 7th attack was marked by mourning and demonstrations. The military says the strike killed Suhail Husseini, who it says was responsible for overseeing logistics, budget and management of the militant group. Palestinian militants in Gaza fired a barrage of rockets into Israel on Monday, underscoring the militants' resilience in the face of a devastating Israeli offensive in Gaza that killed over 40,000 Palestinians, according to local media officials, destroyed large areas and displaced around 90% of the population. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
AI deepfake politicians seem to be popping up everywhere in advertisements, but what about a debate? One congressional race in Virginia will be argued by an AI version of the incumbent. It's an AI politician with a twist. Here's Chuck Palm with today's Tech News.
According to a report from Reuters, a long-shot congressional challenger in Virginia has been attempting to debate the Democratic incumbent one more time before the race. Don Beyer, who is a shoo-in favorite to win, has declined, feeling no need to face the challenger one more time. Bentley Hensel, a software engineer for Civil Actions, decided to debate him virtually, creating an AI version of the incumbent. The deepfake version of the Democratic incumbent, nicknamed DonBot, has the likeness and is programmed with the appropriate responses that the incumbent would likely have given in a real debate. DonBot was programmed on Beyer's official website, press releases, and data from the Federal Elections Commission. Republican Jerry Torres has also declined to debate and will likely be made a JerryBot version. Challenger Hensel has said he did not create the bots to mislead anybody, but only to provide accurate answers. For more, follow me on X at Chuck Palm.
It's time for sports and exciting baseball playoff games. Here's Robert Workman.
National League Division Series, 2 pivotal Game 3s on Tuesday. The Mets mashed the Phillies 7-2, moving within 1 victory of earning a spot in the championship series. Pete Alonso and Jesse Winker went deep early off Aaron Nola. 2-run singles from Starling Marte in the 6th inning, and Jose Iglesias in the 7th gave Sean Manaea a comfortable cushion as he took a 2-hit shutout into the 8th.
It's huge. Haven't had the most amazing career, but through the ups and downs and through the hardships, it's what makes games like this mean so much.
New York goes for the clincher at home today. In San Diego, the Padres scored all of their runs in the 2nd inning and held off the Dodgers 6-5 for a 2-1 lead in that best of 5. After Mookie Betts homered in the 1st inning, a near carbon copy of his shot in Game 2 that Jurickson Profar denied with a great catch, the Padres small-balled their way to 3 runs, hustling out of 2 double plays, then watched Fernando Tatis Jr. go big with a 3-run shot to left for a 6-1 lead. Second baseman Jay Cronenworth.
He's one of our guys, man. He's an incredible player, and it's awesome to see.
LA got off the deck in the 3rd with a grand slam from Teoscar Hernandez to make it a 1-run game, but both bullpens shut things down from there. All 4 series in action today. The Tigers and the Guardians start things off in Detroit. They're tied at a game apiece. Then it's the Phillies and the Mets, Game 4 in New York. The Royals host the Yankees. That series is 1-1. And finally, Game 4 between the Dodgers and the Padres in San Diego. The first coaching change of the year in the NFL, the Jets sacked Robert Saleh after a 2-3 start, a 20-36 record over 3+ seasons, and no playoff games. Defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich will take over in the interim. College football Week 7 kicked off last night with Liberty edging Florida International in overtime, the Flames extending the nation's longest current regular season unbeaten streak to 17 games. And a triple header to open up the NHL season in North America, wins for the Stanley Cup champion Panthers, the Blues, and the new club in Utah. That's Wednesday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. Coming up, the joke may be on the Joker, and it's not over until the fat bear sings after these messages. You're listening to America in the Morning. I'm Jeff McKay, and the Joker sequel, flopping over the weekend, has left Hollywood shaking its head and pointing fingers. Kevin Carr has the details.
Hollywood logic dictates that popular characters in a sequel to a billion-dollar movie is destined to be a hit. However, when Joker Folie à Deux earned a catastrophic $38 million its opening weekend, the industry scrambled to figure out what went wrong.
I'll tell you what's changed.
The Joker is one of the most popular DC characters in comics and film.
You can call me Joker.
Why so serious?
Both Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix won Oscars for their portrayals, so the sequel seemed set up for success.
I got the sneaking suspicion that we're not giving the people what they want.
The movie did not, in fact, give the fans what they wanted, which would have been the Joker's rise to a crime kingpin in Gotham. Also, the marketing downplayed the film's musical elements.
Come on, get happy. Get ready for the judgment day.
This week, Variety reports that director Todd Phillips did not work closely with DC Studios, and the film had no test screenings. Last February, DC top dog James Gunn said films outside the main superhero storyline would be treated differently.
Todd Phillips' Joker or Teen Titans Go, that it is clearly labeled as DC Elseworlds.
Perhaps the ultimate problem was the movie's $200 million budget, which was 3 times that of the original. Like Marvel Studios' expensive flop The Marvels and DC's own Black Adam and The Flash, maybe Hollywood should just get its spending under control. I'm Kevin Carr.
For women, there's Miss America, and for the men, there's the World's Strongest Man competition. And in Alaska, Fat Bear Week has come to a close, and we have a new champion. Ben Thomas has that story.
In Alaska this time of year, bears prepare for a winter of hibernation. And in Katmai National Park and Preserve, that means feeding on the sockeye salmon that return to the Brooks River. The bears often perch at the top of a waterfall, grabbing the leaping salmon as they try to spawn upstream. It's become a highly popular annual spectacle for thousands of humans who can watch via live cameras at explore.org. And that spawned Alaska's Fat Bear Contest. Fans cast votes online for the bear who best exemplifies preparedness for winter by a notable girth. This year's winner, Grazer, her second consecutive title. But there's a bit of a grim backstory. Grazer's victory came over Chunk, a dominant 1,200-pound male who killed Grazer's cub this summer after it slipped over the waterfall. I'm Ben Thomas.
Thanks for listening to America in the Morning. Our senior producer is Kevin Delaney. I'm Jeff McKay in for John Trout on the Westwood One Radio Network.